please subscribe and don't forget to press the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload a new video.
First, let's talk about the market action of the day. No Monday blues really on the last street as markets followed strong cues from Asian markets to end with fairly minor gains today. So the Nifty and the Sensex closed with gains of about 0.5% roughly. Mid-caps mirrored benchmarks with gains of about 0.02%. And there you go on your screens. Banks outperforming very clearly today, rallying close to 1%. Let's bring in Anuj Singhal as always to decode the trade for us. Anuj, no Monday blues, yes, but okay day for bulls. We haven't seen as much of fireworks today.
Well, the rally continues, and the big point for the bulls is that the banks have got their mojo back. The leadership sector is back. It's almost like captain doing well and the team rallying around the captain. The consumption stocks also did well. Axis, BPCL and Hindalco were the top gainers today, and consumption stocks like ITC, Titan, Lever, even Maruti did well. On the way down, Tata Motors and Infosys dragged the markets. Bharti Airtel, which was consensus sell call in the morning, also didn't do too well. We had a big listing today. Big in the sense that it wasn't expected to be this big, but it ended with 28% gains. That's Lemon Tree Hotels. Expensive, but the market mood was positive today. Big mid-cap gainers, most of them in the consumption space, all kinds of consumption. Venky's, Page Industries, PVR, and some more gainers today included names like Balkrishna, Raymond and Chennai Petro. All in all, the bulls continuing with the winning base for now.
Okay, so for now, no blockbuster, but a good day for the bulls. Thanks, Anuj, for taking us through that. Of course, that important listing helped as well. But let's talk about the big court story of the day, the latest in Binani Cement's out-of-court settlement offer. After securing a nod from the National Company Law Appellate Tribunal, or the NCLAT, the company has now approached the Supreme Court for a final approval on its sale to Ultratech. The Apex Court has agreed to hear the company's plea. Ashmit Kumar is here with more details. Ashmit, how crucial and critical is this for Binani Cements to actually go through? And very quickly, give us a background to this.
Well, let's keep in mind that the NCLAT, in the 3rd of April order that it had passed that provided for an out-of-court settlement, clearly provided that should there be such an out-of-court settlement, it would have to be vetted by a competent authority, in this case, which happens to be the Apex Court. So expectedly, Binani Industries moving the Apex Court, as you rightly said, with their out-of-court settlement offer. The offer we picked up from councils is in the neighborhood of 7,600 plus the interest till the commencement of insolvency proceedings. The two prayers that Binani Industries has made very clearly is, number one, for the Supreme Court to grant its nod for its approval as far as the out-of-court settlement is concerned, and the other being the termination of insolvency proceedings. So clearly this is the big trigger that all the stakeholders in this case will be watching for. The Apex Court on its part has agreed to hear the application, will be doing so on April 13th. That's this coming Friday. That's when in fact they will be hearing all the arguments as far as Binani Industry and its proposal for an out-of-court settlement is concerned. Just as a side note, also important to mention that the NCLT, which was supposed to hear this case today, has deferred the hearing until after the Apex Court hearing on April 13th. NCLT will now pick up this case on April 16th. So clearly, all eyes, all stakeholders clearly watching out for that big trigger on April 13th this coming Friday, when the Apex Court takes up this case. Back to you.
Okay, of course, so we're going to be tracking that very closely. Thanks, Ashmit, for taking us through that. But here's the big exclusive of the day. The Reserve Bank of India is likely to make modifications to the NPA resolution circular issued on the 12th of February to accommodate representations made by banks for certain tweaks to the circular. Now, this comes a day before the Parliamentary Standing Committee is scheduled to take up the tweaks required on the 12th February circular. For more details, let's go across to Ritu Singh, who broke that story earlier today. Ritu, what are the exact changes that banks have sought so far?
Well, you know, if any sort of tweak is made to the RBI circular, it will come as a big relief to banks that have expressed reservations from the word go the minute this circular was released because of some of the very stringent norms attached with it. Both the government and the Indian Banks Association have individually and separately made representations and presented their cases to the regulator as to why there needs to be some changes in these current guidelines. As you said, there is a parliamentary committee meeting as well with the bankers tomorrow, where the Feb 12th NPA circular will be taken up. So what are the key changes that we're looking at? Number one, you know, the one-day default disclosure norm is something that banks are uncomfortable with. They want a 30-day cure period instead to be granted to them. The lender's approval to pass any resolution plan, they say, should be brought down from 100% requirement to about 75%. Also, loans to infrastructure companies, if they're refinanced, should not be considered as restructuring and therefore tagged as NPA. This is just some of the key decisions implications of the 10-point, recommendations that the bankers have sent to the RBI. We do expect the regulator will pay heed to these calls and make these announcements soon enough, and that will be a big positive for banks.
Oh, of course, that is going to be very critical, Ritu. Thanks for taking us through those exclusive details. We, in fact, spoke to Financial Services Secretary Rajiv Kumar at the India Business Leader Awards on Friday. Here are what he had to say about RBI's NPA circulars and the tweaks that are needed.
IBA has represented to the RBI. There are representations which have come from other sources as well. The regulator is seized with the matter. There are 2-3 specific issues out there. One is about the one-day default. Another is about the veto. So I'm sure the decision will be taken and the references have been sent to the regulator for this.
And speaking of insolvency issues, Reliance Communications deal with Reliance Jio is facing a fresh hurdle now. HSBC Daisy, an investor in Reliance Infratel, has moved the Supreme Court against the National Company Law Appellate Tribunal order. Now, remember, the NCLAT had allowed Bankers Consortium to sell assets of Reliance Infratel, which is, of course, the tower arm of Reliance Communications. HSBC Daisy Investments has sought a stay on the sale of tower assets and is, in fact, alleging operational mismanagement in the company. We haven't gotten an official statement from Reliance Communication, but of course, this is something that Ashmit Kumar has been tracking and will be critical to understand if there is a resolution there for RCOM to go ahead with its asset sale process. But moving on to the big investigative story of the day, the CBI has called Rajiv Kochar for questioning in ICICI Bank Videocon case for the 5th consecutive day. Now, Rajiv was questioned on Sunday as well, along with 2 directors of NU Power Renewables. CBI investigation so far shows that ICICI Bank mandated Avista to restructure deals worth over $1.5 billion for 7 companies over 6 years. Utkarsh Chaturvedi has been tracking these developments from day one, and he's joining in from CBI headquarters. Utkarsh, you've been parked there for the last 5 days, and so has Rajiv Kochar. What do we have by way of what the investigation is about? And how is this going to progress? Are we going to see other players being investigated as well?
So one development which happened yesterday, Kritika, was the fact that the directors of NU Power were questioned. In fact, Mahesh Chandra Punglia, who's said to be very closely associated with the Videocon group and is also a director with NU Power, was questioned for consecutively 2 days. One more director from NU Power was questioned by CBI in this case. Speaking about Rajiv Kochar has been a daily attendant here, at the CBI office. He's been coming every day at around 10 o'clock and he's been here for 7:30 till 7:38 late night for questioning. Now, what can be expected, Kritika, is very importantly an FIR in this case. We have been saying this from the first day that till the time CBI does not have an FIR, they will not be able to really launch any kind of search operations or raids. So the important documents which normally CBI needs to confront somebody who is not really participating in an investigation is not yet there. So clearly we have to wait and watch till what time does the FIR come, and also the questioning of the 2 main important people in this whole story, Deepak Kochar and Venugopal Dhut, against whom the PE was really filed. Rajiv Kochar, remember, was not even a part of the PE. So clearly these are the 2 developments. We'll have to look at how they progress. We'll keep you updated as and when things progress.
Okay, fair enough. So no closure, no clarity yet, but of course the investigation is on full swing. Thanks, Utkarsh, for taking us through that. We'll keep getting Utkarsh back, but an important update on the story. As the investigation into the alleged nexus between ICICI Bank CEO and Venugopal Dhut gathers steam, credit rating firm Fitch Ratings has issued a warning. In a statement, Fitch has said that the allegations of a potential conflict of interest raises questions over the bank's governance and creates reputational risks. Now, the rating agency adds that the ongoing investigation could also undermine investor confidence in the bank. It also warns that there is a potential risk of financial penalties as well as legal action if the investigation comes up with findings against the bank. Fitch further says that it will closely monitor developments and would take appropriate rating action if the risks to the bank's reputation and financial profile were to rise considerably. So that is one important warning coming in from rating agency. No other rating agencies have so far given a comment on that. Now on to a CNBC TV18 exclusive interview. Xiaomi has doubled its bet in India. This Chinese smartphone maker today announced its plans to set up 3 more manufacturing plants, a decision which would take its tally of factories in India to 6. My colleague Ronojoy Banerjee caught up exclusively with Manu Jain, the Global Vice President of Xiaomi, to know more about their Make in India plans. Jain, in fact, interestingly said that Xiaomi's top 50 global suppliers are eyeing investments worth over a whopping 15,000 crore rupees in India. Jain said that if the investments from global suppliers were to come in, it would mark the highest FDI inflow into India for the electronic manufacturing firm. Take a look at what he had to say.
You brought in 50 suppliers, unprecedented move as far as electronics manufacturing in India is concerned. You've announced commissioning of 3 additional smartphone manufacturing plants along with Foxconn. Now you're saying we are also going to make PCBs out of India. Take me through, unpack some of these big announcements you've made short while ago.
Thank you so much for hosting me. Xiaomi has had a great success in India. We just started about 3.5 years ago. And in a short period of 3 years, we became the #1 smartphone brand. I think one of the key things that really helped us was our whole approach towards making in India. We said 3 years ago when we started off, we said we want to make phones locally here. We want to design phones for India and make them locally here in the country. So we had 2 big manufacturing plants, both of them in AP, Andhra Pradesh. And we are taking the next big leap today. The first thing that we are announcing is we're setting up 3 more plants across
3 more additional smartphone manufacturing plants?
Yes, across 2 campuses. The one big campus is in Andhra Pradesh, Sri City, and there's a new campus which is being built in Tamil Nadu, in Sri Perumbudur near Chennai. Right. So across both these plants, we'll have across both these campuses, we'll have 5 manufacturing plants, all of them owned and operated by a partner, Foxconn. And in addition to this, we also have a manufacturing unit in Noida in partnership with HiPad, where we used to make power banks. And even in this particular unit, we will start making phones. So we'll now manufacture phones across 6 different plants, 5 with Foxconn and 1 with HiPad.
So what is the demand projection that you're internally expecting? I mean, this is, you know, you're increasing your manufacturing footprint 3-fold through this. So what is it that you're expecting? Maybe give me a number 5 years down the line, which has sort of, you know, pushed you into making this sort of a bold announcement.
If you would have asked me 3 years ago whether we would be the #1 brand, and if you look at the IDC numbers for last few quarters, we're doing more than 9 million phones a quarter. We would have never expected that. So it is very difficult for a company which has been here for 3 years to give you a 5-year long
projection.
prediction.
35-36 million handsets you're producing currently.
What we're doing
now you're saying you're going to increase it 3-fold. Hence I'm asking. I mean, that's a phenomenal jump from where you are currently.
Just to be clear, a lot of this has already been done. And the number that the IDC is basically suggesting, which is 9 million a quarter, is after a lot of this addition has already happened.
Okay.
And we were going to do this even further. We are open to further expanding this. So we are pretty bullish on Indian market. Like we really believe our journey has just started. What we can achieve is a lot more. Because even if you look at this, even after this 9 million a quarter number that IDC claims, a lot of people are still not able to buy our products. Because the demand is significantly higher. Even after becoming the #1 brand in India, a lot of people complain that they're unable to buy products. And we want to solve that problem once and for all by just increasing our supply. And that's why we're taking such a big step.
Because everybody would say, you know, that what you're telling me is that the volumes you had anticipated earlier, it's, you know, eventually it's surpassed and it's gone much beyond what you were expecting, but that was on a lower base. But now your base is expanding. And therefore, I'm still trying to understand. So what is internally, what is the number that you would have given your team, you know, to sort of, or perhaps convince, you know, the Xiaomi board to make this kind of investment in India?
I really cannot talk about a number. It's very difficult for me to say. The way that we work is we work on a very real-time basis. We will continue to monitor how our demand is, how much we can supply in the local market. And then we are open to expanding, even setting up more plants, either within the same campuses, or even opening up new campuses in coming few years. And this is just a starting point for us, because on one hand, we would want to set up more manufacturing units for our existing products, which is smartphones. But second, we would also want to set up or get more and more component suppliers to ensure that the entire supply chain is here locally in the country.
Get you that entire conversation a little later in the day. But here's another important voice of the day. I am in talks with Finance Commission for a non-lapsable fund for defence. That is the word coming in from Defence Minister Nirmala Sitharaman. Remember, non-lapsable defence capital fund account or a roll-on allocation policy is a recommendation which is basically made by the Parliamentary Standing Committee on Defence. Addressing a CII gathering, the Defence Minister also said that this policy would remove uncertainty and help in providing adequate funds for various defence procurement. Listen in.
We do not want a situation where at the time of thinking about a certain procurement, you had the funds, but by the time you moved into the next year or year after, because you tried, you had your trials, you had your process of negotiation, you had the various stages of clearance, and after that, when you really come to the crunching point, there's not enough money. I'm in fact talking with the Finance Commission to make sure that defense procurement funding, the capital, particularly the capital expenditure, is what I may call, I do not know if the finance specialists will be comfortable with it, but a non-lapsable kind of an allocation so that it can be alive even after a certain cycle of decision making.
On to the big political story today. With the Karnataka Assembly elections just around the corner, the BJP has announced its first list of 72 candidates. The list was made public after a meeting of the BJP's Central Election Committee at the party headquarters in Delhi. Senior leaders of the party, including the party chief Amit Shah, Prime Minister Narendra Modi, Rajnath Singh and Sushma Swaraj chaired the meeting. Its chief ministerial candidate, Yediyurappa, will contest from his home ground, Shikaripura. Who are the other contestants from that party? Let's bring in Rukmini Rao, who has the details. Rukmini, give us a sneak peek of what we're looking at.
Following a two-day-long marathon meeting of the BJP's Central Election Committee, the first list of 72 candidates who will be contesting in the upcoming Karnataka Assembly elections is finally out. The prominent names that are figuring in the first list, of course, includes the chief ministerial candidate of BJP, B.S. Yediyurappa, who will be contesting from his bastions, Shikaripura. The others being veterans, Ishwarappa, who will be contesting from Shivamogga, and Jagdish Shettar, who will be contesting from Hubli Dharwad Central. Surprisingly, a close aide of infamous mining baron Janardhan Reddy, Sriramulu, will be contesting from Molkal, Muru, and not really from Ballari as expected, which has brought in a bit of disappointment to his supporters in Ballari. The list also, in fact, figures a few first-timers like Rupali Nayak, and also it has a whole host of defectors who moved to BJP just very recently from JDS, like Malikaya Gutedar, Subhash Gutedar, Mallikarjun Khuba. The party has also ensured that it has put out close to over half of the candidates for Bengaluru. 16 names out of the 28 names have been announced, largely consisting of sitting MLAs like Arvind Limbavali, Raghu, Ashwath Narayan, Suresh Kumar, a lot of others who are going to be contesting from their existing seats, and we'll have to wait and watch out for the next set of candidates who are likely to be announced very shortly in the next couple of days or so. Back to you.
Okay, Rukmini, thanks for joining in with that. From the big political to the big national story of the day, the Supreme Court today pulled up the central government for not framing the Kaveri water sharing scheme by the stipulated deadline. Remember, earlier this year, the Apex Court, while delivering its verdict, had asked the centre to come up with a draft scheme by the 29th of March, so that its judgment on the Kaveri water distribution can be implemented. Today, the Supreme Court criticised the centre for neither framing the draft scheme within the stipulated deadline nor approaching the court to convey this difficulty. The court has now set a deadline for the 3rd of May for the centre to come up with the water sharing scheme. Well, with that, that's all we have on this edition of After the Bell. Thank you so much for watching the show. Stay tuned though. Markets today will take all the market action forward on the other side. Thanks for watching.
तुझी से मैं चलता हूँ, तेरे लिए जलता हूँ, तू जो चाहे करेंगे जरूर, तू मेरा फ्यूल हो,
टैंक फुल करना।
जो भी कुछ करूँ मैं तेरे लिए करता हूँ, तुझी से मैं हुआ मशहूर।
जमीन से आसमान तक, पहले इंडियन, फिर ऑयल। इंडियन ऑयल।
Leadership has no boundaries. When greats come together, the grand stage becomes grander. Witness the biggest platform as global icons converge in Singapore to discuss the road ahead for Asia. Presenting the first international edition of the HT Mint Asia Leadership Summit on 13th April in Singapore. Presented by Camellias by DLF, powered by Better You and Ascendus.
Every morning on CNBC TV18's Bazaar Morning Call, data gets transformed into expert insights that drive decision-making.
I don't watch business channels. If I do watch, I watch CNBC.
Any market moves because of liquidity.
The Asian screen is green.
The market has done remarkably well.
Stocks expected to be under pressure today.
The market is heading up.
For policymakers, CEOs and decision makers.
The first channel I put on is CNBC TV18 because I want to know the business news.
From minute-by-minute analysis to expert inputs and global views, you get the news before it hits the trading floor. Bazaar Morning Call. At these times, only on CNBC TV18.
Morning Call brought to you by IRB Infrastructure Developers Limited and V-Guard, India's #1 AC stabilizer.
देश के सभी शहरों में 14 हफ्तों में सबसे भरोसेमंद एंकर्स के साथ सबसे तेजी से आगे बढ़कर आज तक को पछाड़ नंबर 1 बना न्यूज़ 18 इंडिया डंके की चोट पर.
Every number has a story to tell, but there's more to them than meets the eye. Find out what the numbers don't tell you, the value they actually give you.
Lower impact on fuel and power are carried forward.
As we map India Inc.'s financial journey every quarter, boardroom. Throughout this month, only on CNBC TV18. This is TV18 and you're watching CNBC TV18.
Markets Today brought to you by Volta's All-Star Inverter AC.